Hey, Mike here with Canadian Musician. On the line with me is Graham Wright, keyboard player for one of the catchiest, coolest Canadian bands going in recent years, Tokyo Police Club. Before we get into it, first, Graham, just want to thank you for giving me some of your time today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No worries, man. And so, a new album. It's been a little bit of a wait for Tokyo Police Club fans. The last album of, at least of original material, came out in 2010. That was Champ. But the new album, Forcefield, coming out March 25th. First of all, you had a 10th anniversary covers album in 2011. Why the 4-year wait between original albums?
That's just how long it took to make it. People sometimes seem to think that bands have a strategy for like everything they do. And interestingly, bands have a strategy for a lot of stuff, but that's the stuff that people seem to think is off the cuff. And the stuff that's off the cuff that happens by accident and by circumstance, that's the stuff where people are like, so your songs are very short. Aha, what was your plan? You're like, I don't know, we wrote short songs. When we finished them, they weren't long yet. And it's the same thing with the long wait between albums. It was just a matter of, doing the thing we always do, which is try and write the best possible songs we can and taking as much time as we think is necessary. And this time it seemed like a whole lot more time was necessary. And kind of by the time we came up for air, it was like, oh, crap, it's been, almost 4 years by the time this thing actually gets out there. At the same time, there's also just like the movements of the machine. So we're coming up on the year anniversary of like finishing recording this album. It's not like we're finishing it tomorrow before it comes out. It's been done for ages. And then it has to get mixed, and then it has to get mastered, and that takes time because the guy that's going to mix it isn't available for 2 months, so you got to wait. And the guy that's going to master it can't fit it in until a month from now, so you got to wait. Then it's like, well, no, it's December. We're not going to put an album out in December because Christmas is happening. Well, now you got to wait. And so it just, next thing you know, it's 2014.
Fair enough. Was there a conscious writing sessions or anything along those lines? Was there a point when you really started writing the album, or was it really just kind of piecemeal came together over that time?
There's always a point where you start in earnest, or so you tell yourself. Of course, in reality, some of the songs already are floating around, and other ones don't come out until like sort of a piecemeal thing later on. But there was, the lion's share of the time it took to, make this record was spent in a room writing the record. That's what we spent a lot of time on, simply because we kind of realized with the last one, while we were recording it, there was a lot more we could have done to write it. And so this time we were determined to do that in the first place and not have to sort of like cobble it together in Pro Tools. Yeah.
Champ was a great record. What was it about it that you guys wanted to flesh out more?
I don't know if it was anything in particular. I mean, it was just a matter of a lot of the times when you make a record, you sort of realize right after it's finished all the things you wish you'd done, or all the things you wish you'd done differently, or all the things you could have done better in the first place that you managed to fit in at the last minute. And that's just growing, and that's just getting better. And I mean, it's like, if you're a writer, your next book's always going to be better than your last book, or at least written better than your last book, simply because you're going to learn a bunch of stuff from the process of making one thing. And it's no different.
And with that, then, what's the progression with Forcefields? I've heard the first 3 songs that have been released online, and they all kind of have a slightly different feel to them. And but from your perspective, how is this album a progression, musically, lyrically, just structurally, from Champ?
In my mind, we continue on the path towards directness. Which is something that I think more and more we realize that we're all 4 of us fans of as music lovers, is the idea of listening to a song and hearing the intent of the song. I don't think that, as much as we all love all kinds of different types of music, I don't know that any of us are deeply in love with the kind of music that sort of like bobs and weaves and hides its purpose or like obfuscates. And there's a place for that kind of music, and I know that people love it. And sometimes I want to throw on a Colin Stetson record and vibe out as well.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, all my Desert Island records are records that are like pop records, and they have choruses, and the songs sound like the songs sound, and that's just the kind of music that I love to listen to. And so naturally, it's the kind of music I want to make. And I think that in as much as there's been any kind of clear straight line through our career, which is debatable, but let's just assume there is for the sake of the answer. It's kind of been coming to terms with the fact that we want to do that we're good at doing that, and then getting better and learning how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, kind of the forte of Tokyo Police Club the whole time since your first EP came out has been these pop hooks. Incredibly catchy songs without completely going into the pop realm. Essentially, is that... I know you said before that sometimes the things that look planned aren't necessarily the most planned. Was that just the natural outcome of you guys writing together, or was that, for lack of a better word?
I think it was a little bit of both at the beginning, at least. I know that, when you're young and you're writing music, I think there's a tendency to write all different kinds of music because you don't know what you're doing, and so you're just trying stuff out. And so you hear a Franz Ferdinand song, you try and write a Franz Ferdinand song. And you hear a Wilco song, and you try to write a Wilco song. And certainly, mercifully lost to time are some of the early experiments of Tokyo Police Club that would be unrecognizable in the context of the music we're making now. But there was an early point where we sat down. It was after we sort of got some interest from the record label, after it occurred to us that maybe this was something we could do for real. Mm-hmm. And at that point, we said, what kind of thing do we want to do? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't strategized in the sense that, what kind of music is going to sell, or what kind of music is, in the zeitgeist. How can we do that? That never would have worked. It was kind of a combination of what do we think we're the best at, which of the songs that we're playing do we like the best, and which kind of songs excite us moving forward. Mm-hmm. And it became very obvious at that point what sort of fit and what didn't, and so we scrapped all the songs that didn't fit, moved forward with the ones that did, and I think that provided us with a context to write every other song we've ever written. And so in that sense, there's an element of strategy at the beginning of it, but I don't think that it's ever been too thought out in terms of whoa, guys, put this song away. It's a little far from the mission statement.
Yeah.
We're trying to stretch that at the same time. And you kind of trust your context. You trust that the songwriting mechanisms that we already have in place reflexively are going to keep us within the zone, because ultimately, if Tokyo Police Club writes it, it's a Tokyo Police Club song.
Yeah. On that note, I'd seen a previous interview, I'm not sure how old it was, where you had said that the song Be Good off of your guys' first EP was kind of the quintessential Tokyo Police Club song. Again, I'm not sure how long ago that interview was, to be honest.
I said that a lot of times.
Fair enough. Do you still feel that way in the context of the new album?
Well, I feel a little differently about it. And even during Champ, I think that maybe there are different quintessential Tokyo Police Club songs, and I think Be Good still sums up a lot of what we do, and it certainly sums up a lot of what we did. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you're not necessarily going to take a Be Good and be able to find a Hot Tonight in it. I don't know if that DNA, I don't know if there's anything in common other than the fact that, it's the same four people playing the same song.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know, it's just, I keep coming back to that song as one that just feels to me the most like Tokyo Police Club feels. It's not my favorite. Mm-hmm. It's not, we don't even play it live at every show, It's not like it's our anthem. It's not our, the one song that we have to hold on to. It's just that to me it feels right. And that might have as much to do with my memories of writing it as it does with anything else, who's to say.
Speaking of writing, is there a typical songwriting process for you guys? Is there a lead songwriter, or is it completely collaborative? How does that work?
Dave is definitely writing the songs. He's bringing in the material, and that's varied anywhere from he'll come in with a demo that sounds pretty much like, a MIDI version of the final song, and we kind of learn the parts and then it doesn't change that much from there, to other ones where he brings in sort of a scrap and it's just like a free-for-all where everyone's running around changing it up, and anything you can imagine in between. We wrote, especially this record, we wrote it in so many different ways. From the standard standing around in a room playing our instruments to sitting around in a circle with 4 acoustic guitars experimenting with what the chord progression under the melody should be, and or whatever else. It just was whatever worked best, or whatever was exciting.
Yeah. Of those methods, was there one that you found to be more fruitful that stuck? Or?
No, it was always the one that was always the most fruitful, or the one that always stuck, was kind of like the one we weren't doing yet. It was all, we'd spend 3 days standing around with our instruments, and we couldn't crack a song, and then as soon as we changed to the next thing, we'd crack it. So then we'd stay on that for a while until we got stumped, and then we'd move on to something else. We'd crack it again. And so, you got to keep yourself on your toes. You got to shake up your perception. I think it has as much to do with just like a fresh perspective as anything else.
Mm-hmm. For you as a keyboardist, essentially, is there a, I don't know what the right word would be, but it's not a motto, but is there essentially a purpose that you always try to bring with your keyboard parts to the song?
Not anymore. There used to be. When we first started, I didn't want to be too synthy. Mm-hmm. Like, I really was not down with obvious keyboard parts, and whenever, there was a couple of times with the early records where people would be like, I can't tell if it's keyboard or guitar. And I know that for both Josh, the guitarist, and me, the keyboardist, we loved hearing that because he was all into, like, effects work and soundscapes, and I was all into, like, riffs, and like, we were kind of swapping roles. But I think that was, like many of the impulses I think any band has early on, I think that was really born more out of insecurity than anything else. And it was like, synths aren't cool, like zippy pads are lame. And as I've gotten older and stopped caring about what's cool and what's lame, and I started caring more about like what's good, I've gotten a lot more comfortable with, and indeed a lot more excited about traditional synth stuff, to the point where, there's filter sweeps all over this record, and there's high chimey pads and all the choruses just holding down the root because that makes choruses sound great always. And like, it's interesting, there's more keyboard on this record than probably any other Tokyo Police Club record, but I think you wouldn't know it the first time you listen to it. It's like a guitar record that just has a lot of keyboards sort of like helping out and doing their thing, but they're just there to like stabilize and to keep the dream alive.
Yeah. On that topic, actually, just earlier today, I was kind of going back through your guys' catalog, and the keyboard intro to Bambi that kind of starts off as this distorted, disjointed sound and kind of morphs into this really cool rhythm. I was just interested about how that came about. Did it start off as just playing along? Like,
not keyboards.
Really?
That right there is technically that's guitars, but what you're really looking at is like studio trickery. It's basically a like instrumental guitar thing that David sort of noodled together in GarageBand. Mm-hmm. And then he just at random just chopped samples of no set size, no set anything, just chopped like, a beat here, 2.5 beats there of the whole piece, stuck them in order, and that was like the origin of that riff. And then, he added some stuff, he modified it a bit, but like, that's where that came from. And so live, I just play it off a sampler. But on the record, it's like this exact same, like, low-quality GarageBand MP3 rips or whatever.
Oh, man, that's cool.
And everyone gives me credit for it. I should stop saying that it's guitars. It's just like, the problem is I'm worried if I say it's keyboard, someone's going to be like, oh, how did you do it? And immediately it will all fall apart because that would be impossible. I don't think there's a synth patch in the world that would sound like that.
Fair enough. I was going to say, just take the compliment and run with it. But I guess band unit. And
exactly.
From your guys' first, as soon as your EP came out, you guys were really buzzed about band. But to your credit, that buzz hasn't died off. You guys have stayed very popular, a band that people look forward to new releases. But in this day and age, it's kind of an era of a lot of buzzed about bands that quickly fall off the radar and then get replaced by other buzzed about bands. So is there I know you said before, and we've talked about how there is no strategy, but is there a reason why you guys have held on when a lot of other bands that get lumped into the same genre have disappeared?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the first thing I would say is that I think that the buzz absolutely has died off. I don't think there's anything resembling what there was in 2006. I mean, like, we've released, go check Pitchfork and see if they've mentioned the fact that we've released a new song. I'm pretty sure they have not. When we announce tour dates, go check the AV Club and see if they write a story about it. They probably don't. Because you can't. Like, it's not like they're going to write a story about every band that puts out a new song and every band that releases touring dates. They write stories about the hypey, buzzy new bands, and we're not that. And I don't think we have been that, since Elephant Shell. And I think what we did right, and again, I don't know if we did it on purpose, but what we did right was never really make the buzz a big part of what we were doing. It was that, I'm not saying that it wasn't responsible for us getting started, because it absolutely was. I mean, we were able to go on tour, we were able to get on, support slots and play festivals and stuff on the strength of that buzz. Yeah. And we used it, but at the same time, we busted our ass writing really good songs, and we toured like crazy people, and we lived with our parents and, spent our own money driving around America in a van playing to, 10 people, and the next tour 30 people, and then, it's not a new idea going out and organically building a fan base, but it's something that we just, single-mindedly, sort of insanely hurled ourselves into, consequences be damned, and, as ever, with a confluence of the right circumstances and the hard work and the quality product, we were able to make fans that loved the band and loved the records. And when the hype went away, they didn't notice, because we were a band to them. And we talked about it a lot. We talked about how exciting it was that we were becoming a band. It's not. There's no hyper buzz necessarily in 2014 when the Hold Steady announces a new record, like there was 4 albums ago for that band. Yeah. But I'm still psyched about it, not because of the novelty, not because they're out of left field and I can't wait to get with the zeitgeist. I just love the band, and I can't wait to hear what new treats they have for me. And I think if you can get people to feel that way about your band, that's where you start to build longevity, and that's how you start to have a career. Instead of, getting, one time Pitchfork goes batshit insane over a song, and you're huge and you're headlining festivals, and then 6 months later the review of your record is a sad dog meme, and now where are you, unnamed band who we won't mention. And it's not that, it's no one's fault. It's just if you get too swept up in the hype, no matter what you do, you can get screwed. That was the other thing, I think, that we didn't have that much hype. We had enough, but never quite at the level where people wanted to really wanted a piece of us. So we were able to fly just under the radar enough, I think, that we had the time to build organically. Our first tour, we did play to nobody, and I think if we'd been a little more hypey, our first tour we might have played to 600 people a night, which would have been super cool at the time, but we weren't ready to play to 600 people a night. And then we would have played to 600 people, 500 of them would have been well, that sucks, and we never would have got them back. So, it is nice to start small and build it as you're prepared to build it, instead of just have it thrown at you right away and then deal sink or swim, good luck.
Yeah. Well, with that, it sounds like what you're saying is essentially the old school method of building a fan base through constant touring is still really the best long-term strategy, rather than trying to navigate this era of social media and blogs and that. Obviously, that's all part of it, and it can give you a kickstart like it did with you guys. But is the old school method of just play every show, play the dives, is that still the best way to go for new bands?
Yes, but I don't know if Joe Sixpack started a band tomorrow and got no buzz and no blog attention and no press and no nothing. Yeah. If he got in the van and topped it out and played the dives, I don't know if it still works. I think, I have no idea how the music industry works even now. It's different from when we started. But I suspect you need some kind of a leg up or some kind of reason for people to give a shit.
Fair enough. And luckily, people still do give a shit, and rightfully so, man. One last thing. Just of the 3 songs that have come out so far, the one in particular, Argentina, parts 1, 2, and 3. Why, as an intro to an album, go with a 9-minute epic song like that? Seems like a counterintuitive one to release first.
Well, there was a few reasons. I think the main one, honestly, is a lot of times we try to do stuff because it's awesome. There's just a certain emotion. When you're sitting around with your friends and someone has an idea and it's kind of funny at first, and then you start to realize, the reason you're laughing is because you love it, and that trumps everything. And I kind of think that was a big part of it. We're what if the short song band just put out a 9-minute song? What if that was what we did? That would be hilarious and awesome. So that was part of it. It was also the fact, it was our first song back after a long time, so it was nice to give people something they could really chew on, hopefully.
Yeah, no kidding.
And finally, it really has a lot in it. So you hope there's something for everyone in there, and it's hard to cram something for everyone into a 3-minute single. So it was, just sort of a combination of it just felt right, there was good reasons to do it, and and that's the kind of thing where you're like, well, we'll never be allowed to do that, and then the label gets super excited about it and gets behind it, and then you're like, okay, well, if they're going to let us do it, we have to do it.
Fair enough. Anyways, all 9 minutes of it are worth it, so people should check it out. Once again, Forcefield, the new album, is out March 25th, and Graham, I've heard the 3 songs. I do really love them. I can't wait to hear the rest of the record. But once again, man, just thanks for joining me today. It was a real pleasure listening to you.
And a pleasure to speak to you. Thanks, and enjoy the record when it eventually makes its way to your ears.